She stood by the river, a veil of mourning over her hair. No crown, no army, no inheritance, just a widow's black and the weight of 2 sons clinging to her skirts. The wind didn't care who she was. The world had forgotten already. But she had a plan. And it didn't begin with vengeance. It began with beauty, the kind of beauty that turned heads in court halls. But this time, she used it under the open sky. Because the man she needed to see didn't sit on a throne yet. He rode with soldiers, laughed with generals, trusted no one, and owed nothing to a woman like her. But she didn't ask for pity. She asked for justice. And when the guards tried to wave her off, just another widow pleading her case, he noticed something, not in her dress, not in her voice, but in her eyes. They didn't flicker, didn't water, didn't beg. She looked at him like an equal, and men like him, they weren't used to that. He stopped his horse, and that's when the game began. He expected tears, she offered wit, he tried charm. She returned silence, and when he finally asked, "What do you want from me?" she didn't say safety or gold or favor. She said, "To be heard." And somehow that was more dangerous than anything he'd prepared for. She wasn't noble by birth, but her blood ran deep in the veins of old warriors. She wasn't rich, but she knew how to wield silence like a blade. She wasn't invited to court. But soon she would be the reason it burned, because men underestimated her the moment they saw her veil. But they didn't realize. The veil wasn't grief, it was camouflage. She stepped into his world not as a threat, but as a story he thought he could control. A story that began with a secret meeting, a whispered promise, and a ring given in defiance of every law that kept them apart. The marriage wasn't political. It wasn't blessed by council. It wasn't celebrated with trumpets or treaties. It was done in secret, at dawn, with trembling hands and no witnesses who mattered. Because love, when wielded by the right woman, isn't soft. It's a revolution that whispers. And when the court found out, they didn't see a bride, they saw a problem. They whispered, "She's too old. She's a widow. She has children already. She's not one of us." But he didn't care. He had chosen her, not for her name, but for the way she didn't flinch when kingdoms shifted. She stood beside him, crowned in silence, draped in doubt, and wrapped in power no one understood yet. Because they thought the danger was in his enemies. But they were wrong. The real shift in power came from the woman who never raised her voice but still made every man reconsider his place at court. She was not loud. She was not loud because thunder doesn't need to explain itself once it's heard. She was the storm in a silk gown, and the throne had just welcomed its most dangerous occupant. Not because she wore a crown, but because she didn't need one to be obeyed. At first, they tried to ignore her. Court scribes left her name out of records. Noblewomen whispered behind painted fans. The lords bowed to her husband, but never to her. She didn't mind, because she knew silence was an illusion, and so was their control. She didn't fight them, she studied them. Every feast, every gesture, every careless insult flung her way became a map, and she read it like scripture. They called her a passing shadow, but she learned their secrets in that shadow. And then quietly she began to move the pieces. She didn't need to scream to shift the balance. She needed only a rumor, a smile withheld, a glance held 1 second too long. And suddenly all eyes were back on her, not with respect, but with fear, because the king still loved her. And that love, so tender in private, became dangerous in public. She never told him who to trust, but she made it clear who watched him when he wasn't looking. She never ordered arrests, but those who crossed her found themselves reassigned, exiled, or simply forgotten. And slowly they began to realize this was not the widow they expected. This was not the bride they could control. She walked the palace like it remembered her from a past life. The tapestry swayed as she passed, as if bowing to her. The guards stood straighter. Even the servants lowered their eyes, not out of fear, but reverence. Because she saw everyone, and she forgot no one. When a kitchen boy cut his hand, she had herbs sent that same hour. When a maid lost her father, she sent a prayer and coin in silence. When a stable girl gave birth in shame, she visited in secret and left a name behind for the child to carry proudly. They had crowned her in secret, yes, but now the people crowned her daily in the way they whispered blessings when she passed. She didn't speak much, but her presence filled every chamber like incense in a chapel. And when the king struggled with his temper, it was she who calmed him. Not with scolding, but with stillness. Her power was never loud, it was rooted, and roots, they hold up mountains. The nobles tried once more to undermine her. They spread tales, they forged letters, they even found another woman, younger, more connected, more palatable to tradition. But they underestimated how deeply she had already planted herself in the soil of the people's loyalty. They couldn't tear her out without shaking the whole court. So they turned to prophecy. An old seer, bribed and broken, declared, "A queen will fall by fire." They smiled, thinking it poetic, thinking it was the beginning of her end. But when fire came, it wasn't in flames, it was in a decree. A royal pardon she drafted herself, a list of lands reassigned, a marriage annulled, a title stripped. Every noble who had dared to challenge her found themselves politely removed, not by sword, not by scandal, but by paperwork written with elegance, signed with a quill held in steady fingers. That was her vengeance, not destruction, but redirection. They tried to burn her, but she became the fire and the prophecy. It was true, a queen did fall. But it wasn't her. Winter came harder that year. The wind cut sharper. The bells rang slower. Even the palace seemed to shiver. And with it came whispers of war, of rebellion, of crowns cracking under the weight of old debts and older grudges. The king, though brave, was unsteady. He held the sword, yes, but not the strategy. He paced, he drank. He shouted at generals as if volume could summon victory, but she listened. She read maps at dawn by candlelight while the court still slept. She sent letters not with threats, but with questions. What do your people lack? What has the crown forgotten? And the answers came back, not from nobles, but from farmers, from soldiers, from midwives and masons. She built her plans not on conquest, but on comprehension. And when the council finally gathered to prepare for war, she already had the peace. It was her envoy who crossed into hostile land with nothing but parchment. It was her seal that opened gates. It was her ink that stopped armies before they ever drew swords. And when the treaty was signed, they looked not to the king, but to her. He knew it. Everyone did. He wore the crown, but she wore the command. He stood beside her at banquets with a painted smile. But the lords raised their cups in her name. Even foreign kings began to send gifts addressed to her. A tapestry from Spain, a jeweled book from Florence, a prayer handwritten by a monk who claimed to have seen her in a vision. And through it all, she remained humble. Still, because she knew this world was built on men who needed to be seen and women who knew when not to be. She let them take the portraits, let them sing songs of his strength, let them carve his name into stone. She carved hers into memory. And memory, unlike marble, does not crack. She visited the poor, opened a school for orphaned girls, established a healer's quarter where women were taught medicine, the first of its kind. She never claimed it was hers, never gave speeches, never stood on balconies. But the people, they knew. They began to draw her face into margins of prayer books, name daughters after her even in towns that had never seen her, because power that moves quietly moves deepest. And then came the moment no one expected. The king fell ill, a fever they could not name. Sweat pooled on silk pillows. His breath rattled like coins in a box. The court panicked. He had no heir, no plan, except her. His hand, trembling, reached for hers, and in front of every nobleman who had once doubted her, he whispered, "You rule now." She didn't flinch, didn't weep. She simply rose, and for the first time, she didn't wait for permission. She summoned the council, signed the orders, stood where he once stood, and the room did not resist her. It welcomed her, because the truth was she had been ruling all along. Now they simply had to say it aloud. They crowned her in the chapel at dawn. No trumpets, no gold-draped procession, no lavish feast for foreign dignitaries, only candlelight, stone, and silence. Because this crown wasn't claimed by conquest, but by consequence. She knelt not as a queen in waiting, but as a woman who had earned it with every silent wound, every measured word, every moment she chose grace over rage. When they placed it on her head, she didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't even blink. She closed her eyes just once, as if to say, "Let this be the last time I bow." And it was. From that day forward, no one called her wife of the king. They called her by the name she had long buried beneath duty, her own. She rewrote laws in ink and iron. She freed men who had been imprisoned for debts owed to the crown. She funded maps, sent scholars into the sea, gave coin to poets and audience to astronomers. She wasn't just a monarch, she was a movement. Foreign courts, once skeptical, now sent ambassadors who practiced her language before arrival. Some still called her a commoner. She let them, because royalty isn't in blood, it's in bearing. She had survived what blood-born kings had not. She had ruled when men twice her age faltered, and her people, oh, how they loved her. They painted her not with jewels, but with books. Not on thrones, but on horseback. They said her voice could still an argument and that her silence could crush a rebellion. She never remarried, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't need to. She had once loved deeply, tragically, truly. And she honored that love not by mourning, but by building something he never could. A kingdom that outlasted him, a reign they'd speak of for centuries. Years passed, wars came and went, seasons shifted, children born under her crown grew to know no other ruler. And when the time came, when her breath finally slowed, the people didn't wail, they whispered. They lit candles in alleyways, left flowers on courtyards, sang lullabies she once sponsored. Because grief for someone like her was not noise, but reverence. They buried her not beneath marble, but in memory, where her legacy could not fade, where no storm could wash her away. Because though she never sought the throne, she became it. And though history first saw her as a widow, a whisper, a shadow, She left as something else entirely. Not just England's queen, but its backbone, its silence made sovereign, its storm in velvet. The woman who made a king kneel and never bent herself,